And what I'm going to do is share my screen. Okay, so let me do that. Assuming, of course, I can pull up what I want. So pardon me for a second. Okay, I should be good now. Perfect. And so what you should see now is a presentation we're going to take a couple minutes to go through. And then I'm going to start actually with the end in a second and let my two daughters go first so we can send them on their way. But before they do, before that, I'm going to ask everybody to be open to engaging in a little bit of conversation. And so what I'm going to ask you to do, and I'm going to break you into one of the cool things that I just realized we had the ability to do, even with the free version of Zoom, is create breakout rooms. And so I'm going to send everybody into a series of breakout rooms, and I'm going to ask you to chat about these three terms that you see here: connection, contact, and community. And what I'm going to ask you to do is think a little bit about what those terms actually mean when we're talking about teaching and learning and leading. Okay, so open conversation, nothing then a chance for you to talk about what those terms mean. And what I'm going to do, and we'll see if this works, is I'm going to break you up into, I think we can probably do, it looks like we have maybe 18 people. So I think I can do it into 3 rooms. So give me a second. Let's see, we're going to go into 3 spaces. Okay, actually, we'll go into 4, right? And then there'll be about 4 people per room. That'll give you an opportunity to talk openly, right? And just what does it mean to connect, be in contact with people, and to create community? We'll take about 5 minutes to chat. 6 and 9, I'm going to send you to a room with people too. Okay, so you'll get the chance to share what those 3 words mean to you, or you can just listen along with the people who are there. Okay, and then in about 5 minutes, I'll call everybody back to the main room. We'll chat a little bit, and then we'll talk about 3 tools that we found can be helpful for that. So 6, I know you have a question, but you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to send everybody into the breakout rooms, and then I can pop into your room. And if you've got a question, you can message me or you can just ask in that room, okay? So I'm going to send everybody to those rooms now, and fingers crossed that it'll work. And then give yourself 5 minutes to talk about what those terms mean to you. So fingers crossed, let's see what happens. Okay, so you should have gotten an invite to join a room. And so if you click go to that room, you should be on your way, I hope, if it worked. Yeah.
Do I push join?
Yes, go to join, okay? Hey, 910, did it not work?
When you sent me there, I couldn't see your face.
So you know what? There's right now, if you go back to that room to join, 6 is in there by herself with one other person. So if you go in there, it would be great.
I couldn't see anybody.
All right, so someone's in there now.
And I couldn't hear you. I couldn't hear.
That's because you were in a new room. I'm not in that room.
Oh.
Okay? Can you join or it's not?
It's not letting me. There's no button.
All right, let me see here. I'm going to move you to it. Yeah. All right, hold on.
Like it's not working. I can't hear you, Dad.
Nothing happened? You... All right, let's see. I'm trying to send you there and nothing's coming up.
It says the host is inviting you to join breakout room 1.
Yeah, go in. Yep. Okay. All right, let's see. Paul, did it end up working for you? Were you able to get into a room?
I had trouble getting in, and then I was in for a moment, and then I came out because I didn't know what was going on.
So I'm going to try to send you to one. Just
Okay,
so you can see if it works where there's other people.
sounds
I'm
good.
gonna do that for you now, just so you get a feel for that. So let me see.
Sounds good.
Let me look.
Let's see.
Try to go to, okay, hold on. So I'm gonna move you to this one. All right, so you should get something now that says you've been invited to join.
Okay, let's see.
Give that a go.
Okay, just minimize that.
Dad.
I don't see it yet. Oh, join
Nothing.
breakout room?
Yep, try that.
Okay, awesome.
Okay, and now 6. Hey, Taplin, did it work for you? Were you able to get into a room?
Yeah, I just didn't really know what to do.
I actually live in Salt Lake City.
No worries. All right, so hold on. 6, I'm gonna try and get you in.
Oh, no, that's great.
I'm gonna, so 6, something's gonna come up on your screen that says you want to join breakout room 1, and just click that. Okay, so something should just come up for you now.
Oh, nice.
Did it come up?
No.
No, nothing, like no message on your screen?
No.
All right, then just hang out here for now, okay? Because I'm gonna call everybody back in a minute.
Hey, Dad. Dad.
Yeah,
Like, you know how you said that we will like community and stuff?
yeah.
Like,
Okay.
I know about communities, but is it like a different kind of community or the same?
Is Fred there? Okay.
So it's
Did you unmute and
the
talk?
room. Hold on now, 6. So
Okay.
it's like the community you know about.
Okay. Dad,
Yeah.
something just came up on my screen and said close.
Well, I called everybody back from the breakout room, so people should be coming back in soon. So we're just going to wait for people to come back.
So like, just say there's a difference in what's community function and then helps to modern communities. So here's something where you
All right.
will.
So hopefully that worked, right? Now, this is the first time that, or second time I should say, I've tried using breakout rooms. It seemed like it worked for some. I hope you were able to engage in some conversation and see how you might choose to hold smaller group discussions to build community or connection even in a larger virtual space. So what I'm going to do is move ahead now just because one of 6 and 9's friends just rang the doorbell, and I imagine they'll be wanting to get outside a bit. So I'm going to actually zoom ahead and let them chat for a couple minutes about their experiences with Zoom, and then we'll circle back and talk a little bit more and engage in a bit of a conversation. So 6 or 9, okay? And I guess.
Can I go first?
Sure.
No.
So,
I was raising my hand. He said me. Time to do that.
So this may also be like a bit of a train wreck, everybody. So thanks for joining in. So 9, why don't
you
share a little bit about your experiences with Zoom, and then 6 will come back to you. Okay, yeah, go ahead, 9.
Okay, so I haven't really, I've done Zoom, and like me and my dad and my sister, we like kind of interview people, and they could live anywhere, and we'll like ask them questions. They could ask us questions too, but I'm mostly familiar with Google Meet because my teacher uses that to interact with us in the day. So like if we need help, he can ask us, and if you do need help, he'll make this little, I guess there is kind of breakout rooms. I don't really think so, but he separates the people who need help in like a different session so they could work with him, and then the rest of us get to chat and see what's going on like with our friends because we haven't seen them in a long time.
And so 9, just a quick question, and then 6, I'll turn it over to you. In terms of the benefit, right? Like we talked about some of the good things about using a tool like Zoom or Google Meet. What are some of the things that it lets you do?
So there's like my dad said, if you're like camera shy, there's a stop video like button, and you can press it and it won't show your face. And there's also a mute button that's good, like because you're not really supposed to be talking when someone else is talking because it like messes up the computer. And you can press that when someone else is talking, and when it's your turn to talk, you can unmute yourself too. And you can one of the fun buttons I like is the chat button, and you can chat. It's like there's one button to everyone, and you can just send it to whoever you want, and it lets you like talk about stuff and catch up. Yeah.
Thanks 9. All right, 6, thanks for waiting so patiently. What have your experiences been with using Zoom?
Well, I like Zoom because like you can meet different people and talk to different people, and like to be polite, if you want to talk and somebody else is talking, you should raise your hand. But also, if somebody else is talking and you don't need to talk, then you can press your mute button.
And what were some of the nice things besides being polite and muting and like I'm doing, not chewing with your mouth full while you're eating on camera? What were some of the other kind of fun things that you liked about it? Yeah, go.
That it was fun when we meet different people. So like I never meted the people on Zoom, but like when you're on Zoom, you can meet all different kinds of people, and you could just write them maybe.
So it's a really nice way to meet people, right? And to make connections with people. And because you can do it through the computer, right? You can do it virtually. It's also a great way to communicate with people across long distances, right? We know that there are some people in this room now who are not from New York, right? And who are further away. And besides that, it's also really helpful as a way to build conversation skills, right? So you've come up with questions to ask people, right? And sometimes you tell jokes and you do things like that too. And that important that when we're not seeing large groups of people every day, right? When we're not at school, when we're not at work, that we continue to build and focus on our conversation skills. So 6 and 9, I know you've been very patient. I know both of you want to go outside. Is there anything else you want to share about your experiences with Zoom, or like your time working from home, where school is kind of home now and vice versa? Yeah, 9.
I think that when you're working, it's not really with Zoom, but I think when you're working at home with all like the like on Google Classroom, what the teacher sends us, I think it's like more hard because some of the when you're writing, like if your teacher sends out like a sheet on Google Classroom and you need to fill it out, I think it's hard because sometimes you can't even write on it and you have to like reload the whole thing. I also think like that Zoom's also better because you can talk about it and he can also teach you while he's there and you can see each other.
Great, thank you. How about you, 6? What else do you want to say about having had to work from home and, having your home and your school be the same kind of place?
Well, like if you're at home besides school, I like home when I'm being home, but it's also harder to do work because your teacher knows all the stuff that you're learning. But at home, even though there's the lessons, doesn't mean doesn't mean the whole thing and what it means, and you don't understand it. So I like doing it at home because after we can play outside, we can do stuff like that. But it's also easier at school because your teacher knows what to do. Your teacher knows how to do it, and like just say your mom or your dad doesn't know about your work, but your teacher does. So if your mom and dad don't know about your work, there's no way that they can help you with it. But if your teachers do know, so if you need help with your work at school, they'll be able to help you. So
it's a great point, 6. I think one thing that I can say as a parent that's been really challenging has been trying to figure out the best ways to use time, right? And to really figure out how the work that I do, the work that 6 and 9 that your mom does, right? How all of that lives together to also help you with your own work. And so a lot of times for us in our family, the mornings are really crazy, from like 8 o'clock to lunchtime, because everybody's engaged in work, all 4 of us. And so I think that's something that a lot of families are really going through. That's really, really hard. So 6 and 9, your friend rang the doorbell again. So
I know.
Run outside, right?
Yep.
Thank you. It was great to have you join us, okay? So you did an awesome job.
You guys seem very nice. Have fun using Zoom.
So hello, everybody. So I hope that you found some insight from without screaming, girls. I hope that you found some insight from my 6 and 9-year-old helpful. And what I'm going to do real quick is just share a couple other items on 2 other tools, and then I'll open it up to conversation about your experiences, things that either you're picking up on working from home, with your families, other tools that you think are really valuable, and then we'll go from there. So working backwards, let me just kind of push us back. Okay. So one of For those of you who don't know me, my name is Fred Endy. I'm the Director of Curriculum at Putnam Northern Westchester BOCES, and those, of course, were my kids. And the purpose of this session was really to talk about how important it is for us to stay connected and to make sure that we're keeping contact with others so we still feel part of a group and a network. I think it's really a challenge, you know, in order to for us to do that at these times. I think certainly there are elements that are helping me feel more connected as a family with my own family, but then there are some things that have been really hard, right? Like there have been a couple days where I've been sitting like, you know, 20 feet away from my wife or my kids and not even like really interacting with them, right? And so that feels to me really uncomfortable, very different than when I'm in the office, right? And my kids are in school and my wife's in her school, right? So it feels like I'm doing a disservice to the family in that case, right? So trying to manage all of those different situations. And, you know, these are 3 tools that I've used in order to really stay connected. Zoom, we're all very familiar with in some capacity. Google Meet, certainly if we're a district that's relying on Google services and Google Classrooms, but in some way it's all about that, that virtual connection, right? Screencast-O-Matic I put on here. I know many people have been using Screencastify. Excuse me. Screencastify is a tool that's very, very similar. What I like about Screencast-O-Matic, and I'm just going to shift over there, I found it to be probably the easiest of the screencasting tools because its online recorder is really, really basic. And so you don't even need to download any software. The online recorder is super easy. It contains you to 15 minutes of recording time, which honestly, I find that it's hard for me to pay attention to anything longer, right? So I get for all of you that are joining, that had joined the call, now that my kids are gone, right? And that kind of, the awesomeness of that is gone, right? Like I can only talk for so long before you're ready for something else, right? That lack of proximity makes it really hard to stay connected, I find. And then of course you can save files to local computer, upload to YouTube. I know Screencastify can do that as well. But it's a great tool for guidance. You know, one of the things I think a lot of districts in the suburbs of New York City are struggling with, as many of you know, because that's where many of you are from, trying to figure out like, how do we live in a world that's asynchronous, synchronous, but regardless is all done in a virtual space. And so having a screencasting tool is a really helpful way to provide elements of instruction and guidance for kids or adults. You know, Greg Brown, who I mentioned before, he has been doing a lot of this PL on the go work, right? And so he was helping us kind of get started with a lot of our Zoom work even before our BOCES closed. And he just recently put together a helpful screencast on how to protect your Zoom space, right? Because as more people have used Zoom and people are experimenting with how to provide access, it also, you know, you end up with people who you don't know in your room, which can be great for building connections, but sometimes people aren't there for the learning, right, or the conversation. They're there to, you know, do things that you wouldn't want to have happen in a learning space. And so a screencast is really helpful to walk people through elements of that learning. And then the last tool I'm going to share before opening it up to all of you to share your thinking about great tools and share how you've kept connections going is a tool called Voxer. Voxer is an awesome app that really evolves the messaging platform, right? So what it basically is it's a tool that embeds audio communication into what basically is a messaging service. And so rather than just utilizing text, Voxer allows you to leave in some ways kind of what's like a answering machine service, right, for people in this group. And so you can use text, you can include visuals and files, but you can also engage in a asynchronous or somewhat synchronous conversation if people are all in the chat at the same time to talk about things. And what I found to be so powerful about that app is, for me, texting is great. It's a great way to get the word across really quickly, and it's, you know, usually super responsive. But what I love about Voxer is because people's voice is built into it, it adds in the emotion that I often find is hard for me to connect through text. So you can hear how people feel about things. You can pick up on elements of what people are going through. And what's also really nice about it is the chats are invite-only chats. You create the chat and invite the people who should be in there. So you don't run into a case where you either have people who you haven't built a relationship with, or it's totally open to everybody. You're crafting these Voxer chat rooms with people you know. So it can be great, for instance, for, let's say, school or district leadership to stay in contact. You know, it's a level beyond a group chat or a group text chat. You can also use it with kids, often older kids, but you know, I think that 9 and 6 are examples of kids who could also do well in a Voxer environment. It does require a device, of course, right, which is always a challenge for sure. But it's allowed me to stay in close contact with a number of great friends who live all over the world in a way that a group text wouldn't. You know, I think there's really something about hearing voice that that allows us to do a lot of what a visual feed alone, you know, only seeing letters wouldn't allow us to do. So I'm going to stop sharing, okay, and I'm going to turn it over to the group to talk a little bit about some of what your experiences have been, either engaging in building connections and community with your family, with friends, with colleagues, or some of the tools you're finding that are allowing you to do that. And we're a small enough group. We've got 16 people in here that if people unmute and we just kind of pay attention to our screens, we should be pretty capable of kind of engaging in a real polite conversation. But to also know that if you open the participant window, use the button at the bottom, you can also raise your hand, and I'm happy to just make sure that people who have their hands raised that way also get recognized. So I'm going to mute, and then I'll turn it over to anybody who's interested in sharing.
Well, so I don't, I would second what Fred said about Voxer, and that's one of the ways that he and I connect. So hi, I'm actually in Salt Lake City, and that's how we keep in touch. But one of the challenges that I'm having in our district is that I'm a math coach in elementary math, and I'm trying to get my teachers to post things. And I think that they're experiencing that a lot of our families aren't connected, or maybe don't have devices, or even when they do have the device, they're not getting connected. And so they're not seeing maybe the importance of them doing that. That's a lot on them to kind of create these lessons and to record and to get online and to post all these things. But from the parent perspective, and my son Tap was on, he hasn't seen or heard from his teacher outside of these like long email directions. And I think just having that chance to connect with his teacher and feel more connected to his school, but then also be able to get some clarifying questions, because sometimes what she sends and his questions and my questions back to her aren't all kind of lining up. So I feel like having just some of that video connection would be really important for him. And so I'm trying to encourage my teachers to do that. It's a struggle right now.
I know I've been doing a lot of pre-recording videos just because live is a little bit hard for families to be flexible. I know a lot of my families are sharing one laptop, so then to all be able to use it together is really hard. So I've been using personally Screencastify, and each morning like sending a video, setting up their day, saying and like explaining directions out loud. And I've gotten feedback from a lot of parents that they like that I'm introducing what they're doing for the day, because it's more of like an assignment from the teacher versus their parents being like, sit down and do this. So I've been getting good feedback based off of that. So maybe that's an idea, just at least putting some sort of video out there so they feel like they're connected, even if it's not live, and it's a little less intimidating also.
Am I good?
You're good. Talk.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so I'm talking through a FaceTime. I had trouble doing the getting the email, so I FaceTimed one of my colleagues. So pardon me if you can't hear, but so for me, I coach lax at a Westlake High School. So what we've been doing for our athletes also, like Monday, I've been posting like, I'm very big on working out, so I've been posting like little stuff that they can do, like home workouts. We do that, followed by like Tuesday and Thursday, or I do a workout Monday, Wednesday, and then Tuesday and Thursday, we've been doing like a video, like an information video on like, a different skill or like technique or like a film from last year. And then Friday, we started doing like a team bonding activity. So last Friday, what we did was we assigned each teammate another teammate, and they wrote a letter to them as to why they love having them as teammates. So I don't know, maybe if you want to like try, like we got really good feedback from that. If you want to try like doing something that they all have to respond to, because it's easy for them to say that they saw it, but even if you ask like a question, like just like like for instance, like a math problem, if you ask them like a specific math question, leave it something that they have to answer. That way, that you're getting that feedback and participation.
Go Westlake. I teach at Hawthorne.
Oh, there you go. Yes, yeah. So we're close.
Yeah.
I think that's awesome. I think one of the things that's been really hard that I've wondered a little bit about, and was on a call earlier today with this as the conversation point, was, how do we just make sure that we're really staying connected with kids, right? And so Megan had talked before about, one of her sons not having a lot of close connection with teachers. I think the example from our Westlake colleague was a good one, right? Of like keeping teams together, right? And really continuing to build on that bonding. And I wonder from all of you, what are some of the things that you're doing either with your staff, if you're a leader, with a coach, a building principal, a coordinator of a content area, what are some of the ways that you're keeping in that close contact? Or what are you doing in support of your kids? How are you making sure that your kids feel really supported? At a time where they can't use the school as a traditional support. And Greg, I see that you've got your hand up. So yeah, chime on in.
So Megan, I was kind of hearing what you were saying about like being a math coach and the different pieces of that can be a challenge, and then everybody else sort of sharing about the importance of connection and then the different tools that we use. I wanted to share one more that's kind of like a hybrid, and Dana knows Kirk Weiler well, and Kirk and I used to work together when I was at Arlington High School. And even though I'm a humanities guy at heart, I was the liaison for a very large math department, 30 members or so. Looks like I got muted, sorry. So I'm going to put in the chat here like a link that I'm sharing, and I didn't put a space, so let me cut and paste it again so that it actually works for you. And what Kirk and I did many years ago was we tried to do like a flipped classroom model for math, for high school math, because he was lamenting the fact that, you know, during an observation, he was kind of lamenting that he spent half the period going over the assignment from the night before and didn't get to the new learning. And so we started brainstorming ideas that he could use, like how could you be at home with the kids but not really be at home with the kids? And so he took his worksheets and threw a QR code on his worksheets that he already had and did a very brief recording of himself modeling or walking through each of the problems. And if you know Kirk, and if you look at the worksheet, they're hysterical. Like he'll get in there and he'll be like, no, Bridget, no. Pause, rewind, try that one again. Or he'll say like, all right, now I want everyone to try this. Okay, you didn't pause. You know, and he would like crack jokes and do different things. And the kids looked forward to watching the videos and working along with Kirk at home. Kirk had such great success with this that he now has left the teaching field and runs his own company, eMath Instruction. So all of his worksheets and stuff are free. So I wanted to share a resource, and I wanted to share like a technique and a little bit of a backstory about how Kirk started doing this work. And it has evolved way past worksheets and QR codes. But you might be able to embed some of those videos and things you're doing and that explicit direct instruction piece into some of your existing materials instead of creating them from scratch. So just like a little bit of a resource share. I don't have a lot of really good examples of things that I'm doing right now with kids because my primary responsibility is to work with adults and adult learners. So we're using many of the tools already mentioned. And I'm going to yield back my time.
I think, Greg, that also makes me think that that's something else, because just like you, I work mostly with adults, and I've shared with you before that what you're doing here with the PL on the Go is such a great model for us in leadership of if we're engaging teachers more in Zoom and online methods, then that becomes more natural for them to do that with their kids. And right now I have some regrets because we knew about all these tools for quite some time. But I think we always felt like, oh, when I have time, I'll learn about them. Well, now we have time. And so if we had had some of these routines already up and running with tools we've had for a long time, we would just kick right in. Because my daughter is at our high school, and her first reaction when this all happened was, we'll just do Kurt Weiler. You know, like we'll just do what we used to do there.
Hi, my name is Paul Vespo. I'm a school psychologist and CSE chairperson at Lincoln Hall Live School. I work with quite a few people in this room right now, including the screen, Lewis, who gave fantastic advice, and Annie Mitchell, who's an administrative assistant. I really like what you guys are saying as math educators. You know, math is such a complex thing to teach, let alone during COVID-19, right? We're all at home. So I really like Greg's point about the modeling and, you know, showing the kids how to do it and all of that. You know, I'm part of my national organization, MASP, for school psychologists, and I just put a link in here about resources touching upon what you all are saying as teachers and educators, really about taking breaks, going outside. I think that's what a lot of kids need right now, you know, because math is a complex thing to teach, even in a classroom. So I really like what everyone's saying here, and I really want to learn more from you guys as teachers, what I can do for my students if I'm able to get into contact with them via phone, since we're a detention center, you know, so it's a little different than a traditional public school, but yeah.
Thanks, Paul. You know, one thing I do want to say, I think the work of our psychologists, our social workers, you know, our related service providers is so important at this time. And one of the things I know we've talked about in a couple of our online meetings is how, you know, how do we make sure kids are really supported, you know, when they can't go to our offices, right? They can't meet with us as they normally would. And that for me is, I mean, it's out of my area of expertise, but it's something that I'm really concerned about. You know, things like teletherapy and other supports in that area certainly seem like a great step, but knowing me, right? So like personally speaking, this I had shared with a couple colleagues last week that one of the things I've learned over the last few weeks is I'm actually much more extroverted than I thought I was. I knew I always leaned like towards the extrovert side of the spectrum, but I'm struggling in having like the close personal contact with as many people as I normally would. And so when I think of some of our neediest kids, right, and neediest staff members not having access to related supports in the same way is really troubling to me, you know, and I just worry about how we can support kids and staff who need that access in a way that really benefits them. You know, and I don't have any answers to that, but it's something that's on my mind.
We're trying to figure that one out. It's a valid point that you make, you know, especially kids don't have the financial resources, you know, for teletherapy like you were talking about. So I think it's a valid point, and teachers, you know, you guys are on the front lines a lot as well, you know, so it's hard.
So other thoughts from the group? Anything else that's on your mind about building connections that you want to share before we wrap up our time? Joke earlier that wait time is kind of funny in a virtual meeting, right? Because if nobody does anything or says anything, it looks like people are frozen. So you're not really sure, right? Are people just waiting, or did I like lose my Wi-Fi? You know. So if nobody has other thoughts, what we'll do is we'll end out the call. This has been recorded, and so it'll be made available. Oh, and Greg, I see your hand is raised, so I'll come back to you in a second. What we've been doing is actually making these recordings available too. So as you're thinking about resources to support your educators or to engage in conversation with people you work with, our BOCES YouTube channel has a lot of these available. And what I'm going to do, Greg, I'm going to turn it over to you because I know you had a hand raised, and I'm going to just post into the discussion the YouTube link, so that way you don't have to wait while I fumble around to try and find it. So Greg, share what you've got, and I'm going to post in the chat the link.
So the only thing I was going to share is that over the last couple of weeks, being able to connect with people has been super important. Being able to connect with people outside the normal realm of people that I connect with on like a daily basis has been super valuable. And not so much a share, other than just a concern or something that I'm trying to remain conscious of, is if and when things return to like quote unquote normal, how I can continue to ensure that the connections that I've made and the community that I've built with others that have been such a strong support for me in a time of need and crisis can continue to be a support, and maybe I can continue to be a support to others as we start to go back to normal. And, you know, listening to Dana's comment before about, you know, well, we've known these things exist and we always just kind of waited because we either didn't have time or we thought we would have time later. I guess my concern is we've taken some strides. I would hate to abandon that abruptly on, say, April 15th. So I just kind of wanted to throw that out there, and I was curious if and how others have been thinking about that.
I know working on the district level in Arlington with 12 different schools, I was showing another director the Google Meet, and we were having a meeting, and it wasn't something he used before. And I said, right, why would we ever make people physically get in their cars and drive over to district office again, now that we know we could do this. So I'm really hopeful that there will be pieces that we're doing now that will keep going because we realize they're more efficient. They're more engaging in some ways than in person, and it just allows you to connect more frequently.
Yeah, I hope as an elementary school teacher, we incorporate more technology daily. I think a lot of times we think, you know, the students will it'll be too hard to explain to them or too hard. And it's like, now it's a reality. So I hope that we take this back to the classroom after this is all over too.
Well, thank you, everybody. Appreciated the conversation. Thanks for giving my two kids a space to share some of their experiences so far. And thanks for sharing your great thoughts. And I appreciate you coming together at, 1 o'clock Eastern on a Wednesday to talk a little bit about making some connections. So have a great rest of the day. I hope to see you all soon.
Thanks.
Thanks.